Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. We're going to talk today about offshore wind energy, green jobs, and economic opportunities. And we have here for you a fabulous panel to do just that. Right now, as you may know, or you may have read about in the paper, we have a number of offshore wind farms that are making their way through the regulatory process for New York State and Long Island. 5 of them currently. 3 will be supplying power to Long Island, 1 to Brooklyn, and 1 to Queens. Also, 6 more offshore leases have been leased out to different offshore wind companies from literally around the globe. All of that is a big change and a big transition for Long Island and New York State and New York City. And that transition means new jobs and new technology and, frankly, a new way to supply energy, cleaner, safer, and healthier. And also, it is a way to be more sustainable and to wean ourselves off of foreign fossil fuels. So there's a lot of good news happening with the offshore wind movement. But today we want to focus on the good news about our economy and local jobs. So here to discuss that critical issue is this fabulous panel. I'm delighted to have with us today Ryan Stanton, who's the Executive Director of the Long Island Federation of Labor. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We have Mariah Dignan. Mariah is the Regional Director on Long Island for Climate Jobs New York. We're also very happy to have with us Maddie Aracich. Maddie is the president of the Buildings and Construction Trades Council of Nassau and Suffolk counties. And last but absolutely not least, we have with us Marj. And Marj is with the Assistant Dean or Associate Dean of Innovation and Economic Development in Sustainable Energy for Farmingdale University. Thank you so much for joining us, Marj.
Thank you for having me.
And I think we're going to start today with you, Maddie. Let me just ask you, why is your union and you are putting so much time and effort into advancing offshore wind? What does it bring to your members? What kind of jobs, and why are you supporting this?
Well, Adrienne, that's a great question. And one of the things we have to do is begin with one process, thinking that where did we get all the fuels beforehand? Whether it be coal, natural gas, whether it be that you're fracking for gas, whether you're drilling for oil. Those are all beneath the ground. And what happens is that's the process that actually gets us in the problem of having carbon footprint problems. So today, the new energies plan for Long Island and the state of New York is actually everything that's above ground, which is wind, solar. And then, of course, then you also have technology that's coming through with other technologies that we can advance. So with that, that's going to create jobs. That creates opportunities. As we transition out of the fossil fuel industries, this is an opportunity for the building trades to go ahead and have a just transition to go from one trade to another. So that gives us the ability to take people who are in jobs for 20, 25 years, and rather than be unemployed, they can become retrained in a like kind of a market, which is something that they can adapt to. And then at that point, they can have a lifelong career for a long, long, prosperous time, continuing to give you benefits, high wages, retirement. But the most important thing of all of this is safety. And by the building trades getting involved from the very beginning, you can ensure that safety is priority number 1.
I think that's a really great point because, we hear a lot in the environmental movement about, if you close down a coal plant or if you close down a power plant, such as these very old clunkers on Long Island, then what about the jobs? And, nobody, not an environmental group, certainly not a labor group, not any kind of an educational entity wants to see anybody lose a job. We want to create jobs. And so what I hear you saying is this is a way to transition those who are working at fossil fuel jobs and fossil fuel plants and transition them to the new jobs in wind and also solar. And
Correct.
It's very exciting to hear leadership in the union be in that kind of a mentality and be on the cutting edge like that, because I don't think it was like that, 20 years ago. And I think that embracing the change and getting your membership to be part of it and really work for it is really exciting. I think it's exciting for all of us. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mariah, tell us about your organization and the role that you're playing, and why are you supporting offshore wind?
Yeah, of course. So Climate Jobs New York, we are a statewide labor coalition representing 2.6 million working New Yorkers. And we're all really united in addressing the climate crisis, but also addressing the growing inequities in our communities. So how do we do that? We advance pro-worker and pro-climate policies. And we are educating and empowering our members to be a part of this movement, just like you said. We have a real once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a whole new industry here on Long Island, throughout New York, and frankly, throughout the country, to really build communities back up. That's the real importance of what the labor movement brings to the table, is by having project labor agreements, prevailing wage, we can not only build a labor movement that's bigger and stronger, but we get to bring communities and families up with us. And really, that's the work that Climate Jobs New York is trying to do. We're not, the Nassau Suffolk Building Trades and the Long Island Federation of Labor are affiliates of ours, but so is CWA, 32BJ, the nurses. This is a really broad coalition in the labor movement coming together to say we need to act on climate, but we also need to be sure that we're creating good family-sustaining union jobs.
Excellent. Can you just explain to our viewers what a PLA is? I know you know what it is, and maybe others, but maybe not everybody out there knows what that is.
Yeah, so a PLA is a project labor agreement. And I'm sure Maddie and Ryan here can talk to more specifics, as they've probably been in the room where I haven't been. But it's basically, here are the standards that we're going to abide by, and it's a contract between an employer and, the workforce. So I'll let Ryan or Maddie talk a little bit more in detail about it.
So Ryan, why don't you first introduce yourself and say the Long Island Federation. It's not just the Long Island Federation of Labor, because I've heard your president, which the New York State Federation of Labor, talk about this issue and be participatory in conferences and whatnot for offshore wind.
So we, real quick, just speaking about the Long Island Federation of Labor, we represent 250,000 union members here on Long Island. We're very fortunate to have the building trades as an affiliate. We, as Mariah mentioned, are active participants, and we're founding members of the Climate Jobs New York organization. And you alluded to before that, sort of the acrimonious history that the labor movement and the environmental movement might have. And you touched on it briefly, but we've developed a really good, strong partnership here on Long Island with leaders like Maddie, my predecessor, Roger Clayman, our president, John Durso, all of whom are committed to the principle that Long Islanders and New Yorkers, for that matter, don't have to choose between environmental justice and economic justice. If people are earning a good wage, they can make good, sound decisions, and our public policy should reflect that. So we've been very fortunate to have this coalition and this partnership come together. We're committed to seeing that through into the future.
Okay. And I just want to say before we move to Marj, I think Ryan brings up a great point here for our viewers. Years ago, probably about 20 years ago, the labor movement and the environmental movement didn't always work together. And many times, unfortunately, we were at odds. And honestly, for someone like me, that always didn't feel right. I grew up in a home. My dad was a shop steward. He was an active union member. And, I always felt like that environment is something that every union member, a clean environment is something every union member would want. It's clean water, it's clean air, it's a healthy environment for your family. And it is what they want. And we just needed to talk more and figure out, like most discussions, where is it that we agree instead of focusing on what we disagree on. And we found that we agree on just about 90% of the topics. So there's been a great partnership with offshore wind. That's one of the many topics we agree on, in addition to clean water. But we're now working together not only to achieve this momentous goal of transitioning from fossil fuels to clean, safe energy, but doing it in a way that helps keep good jobs flowing throughout our families, good paying jobs, job stability, and really propelling us into a green economy. That's our goal. I think we're going to achieve it, and we're going to achieve it with help from people like Mariah Issapour. Marj's job is actually to work to do just that, create a sustainability program and at Farmingdale College. So tell folks what you're doing.
Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for having me at this panel. I'm not going to repeat what these guys said before because I agree with everything they said. I just want to bring in my perspective from higher ed into this. And that is, offshore wind would create opportunities for a lot of training that we already do in the School of Engineering, School of Technology, GIS, computer science. And all we really need to do in those areas is cover some gaps, some maybe technical areas or some case studies that weren't, covered before. So we're right on that. Farmingdale State College, we have already on the books, as of this summer, a one-year certificate program for wind turbine tech. And it's interestingly enough, we are allowing students to come in with a little bit of a lower entry level point in terms of the rigor and what they require. That itself helps some of the economic gaps or disparities that exist on Long Island. We all know Nassau County is one of the richest counties in US, right?
Yes.
But we also know there are neighborhoods in Nassau County that are one of the poorest, and also Suffolk County. So how do we bring this together? I think offshore wind creates a fabulous opportunity for us to recruit the proper talent from those areas and address those disparities, not only in terms of economic, but also in terms of the faces that actually represent the offshore wind as an industry. And for the first time, I have to tell you today, I feel I have the dream job. Why? For the first time in my career, I'm sitting at the table with organized labor. We're not at odds with each other. We are working together. We're going to the same communities together. Maddie has been coming with me to address the students from these areas, and we try to recruit the talent. Some are really perfect for pre-apprenticeship programs, and some are good to come to our college and they never had a college career. We're trying to overcome those barriers. I'm totally delighted about what's happening. I also wanted to address and say something else which is kind of in line with what Ryan said, and Maddie and Mariah, and that is, when I started talking about wind, Maddie and I talked about wind when nobody was talking about wind. And now we're talking about hydrogen and other stuff together. But I went down south to Texas to look at what onshore wind was like, right? And I have to tell you, I am proud of our New York State because nowhere else in the country we have such a, movement in terms of both government and organized labor to work together, to do the things right. Okay? And so I think that we have to applaud the guys that are at this team and our governor and people like you who have, to make that happen. Because I think we will be a poster child for the offshore wind in US.
I think that's true. And thank you for all the education that you're doing. I agree. The way to lift up communities is through education, apprenticeship programs, and job training. That's how you have a lasting, sustainable effect on communities being lifted up. So that's really great. Maddie, I know you want to chime in about that. I know you well enough now. I can see it in your eyes.
I will tell you that sitting from this position 10 years ago, the explanation would not be the same. Today, the partnerships that we have with you, the partnerships that we have with Marge, Long Island Fed, Climate Jobs, all the coalitions we put together are exactly the right reasons why this is all working. When Marge had mentioned something about education, the one thing that we're talking about is pre-apprenticeship programs. So if we're talking about education and trades, the one thing that we can really dig down and make sure that it's really solid is the fact that our program works. We know that it's because it's a proven model. How do I know? My local's been around for more than 130 years. Name a country that has companies that last more than 100 years. Think about them. How many businesses do you know that are 100 years old? I can name
Not many.
I can name 26 right off the bat, and they're all building trades.
Okay.
And that's what the problem is. People don't understand because we've gotten to the point of today, we're actually promoting ourselves. Instead of saying going on a defensive, we're actually going on the offensive, saying this is what we could do. We're pushing the idea that we can train people, and it's about diversity. Look, when I started with Local 12, I'm a third generation for me. When I took over as the business manager, we used to take in 12, 13 apprentices. We then took in 40 with the idea that we want to expand the education side to make sure that everybody has the alternative and the opportunity to get jobs. We took in 7 women and 77% minority.
Go
That
women.
shows that's exactly
great.
what we're
No,
supposed to do.
That's very good.
Right. So that's why we know that what we bring to the table is concrete, and we can prove that everything works.
So tell our viewers, what is an apprenticeship program? They may not know. What kind of job training is there? And I want to circle back, though, and talk to you about your program that you have in the summer for high school students. But what's an apprenticeship program?
So answering that question, but also pivoting back to a comment Marge
Okay.
made. Marge pointed out that I think people's worldview of Long Island is that we're Manhattan to the Hamptons, and they don't realize what's in between.
Yes.
And the communities in between, we have more folks living in poverty on Long Island than a significant number of counties have in terms of population in New York State. We're a densely populated area with a lot of people that are struggling. And so pivoting back to your actual question, an apprenticeship is an opportunity for folks to earn while they learn. It's an education that doesn't require them to take on debt. Ultimately, the more union work, the more people are able to go to work under a collective bargaining agreement, the more apprentices Maddie's Locals are able to bring into their training program, because we have a commitment to our members to put them to work. It's not something that the employer is required to do on their own, but construction is known as temporary work, yet we have 60 to 65,000 members on Long Island that have made that temporary work a career. They've been able to do that because they have the leadership of Maddie Aracich and the other folks leading those building trades locals that are dedicated to their members, ensuring that as they learn a skilled trade over a 3 to 5 year period, they're also going to work and earning a wage. So they're not accruing debt. They're being given a skill and an education that can never be taken away from them. And they have partners and leaders that are committed to working with the employers and the industry as a whole to making sure that when that temporary work comes to an end, a project concludes, they have a team of folks lining them up for the next work. So the more union work we have, the more apprentices we're able to recruit, and we're able to address that issue of poverty.
And I just want to say again, I love the phrase, job training that doesn't accrue debt. I saw Mariah go
Me
like
too.
this.
Yeah. So
It's a serious issue, especially, for my generation. This is, we're rattled with thousands, tens of thousands of dollars of debt. And, going into a trade, you're earning while you're learning. I know my friends who are, electricians or welders, they own a home. I don't. And it really just shows and demonstrates the power of the labor movement. And, to get to Ryan's point of recruiting more apprentices, Climate Jobs New York, we do local by local education sessions with apprentices, with shop stewards, with business managers, even from rank and file members all the way to the top of the leadership in the labor movement, on the specific offshore wind projects, the types of jobs that we're looking towards, and how we as the labor really need to lead on climate. And we're taking that opportunity and we're running with it. It's not, just construction and installation we're talking about. It's project development. It's operations and maintenance. And my very big passion is developing a domestic and secure supply chain. That's where most of the jobs in offshore wind come from. And if we talk about, creating a whole clean energy economy, we need to be sure that those parts of the turbines are manufactured here and then they're built union.
So one of the things that's really important here is the fact that everything that this panel has actually talked about used to be exclusive to the conversation of the building trades. So we've gotten that message out, they've absorbed it, and they can repeat exactly the same things we do because they're factual. One of the other things is, when we're talking about training, we train more people and graduate more people with no debt, at no cost, because we pay for it ourselves, than all private colleges combined. That's an amazing
Wow, that's an amazing stat.
That's right.
It is.
So that has actually helped us step up our move in that direction, because what if somebody wants this college education and we don't want them to Mariah's point, wind up with a lot of, so one of the schemes we have used is, it's really not a scheme, but It's the certificate program is a SUNY certificate program. The students do actually are eligible for financial aids. In addition, we have had, believe it or not, private people that are, basically made their money. They want to give us donations. We are creating a scholarship programs. So whatever financial aid doesn't pick up, we will pick up, and so people can go through this college education and come out hopefully debt-free, right? So we're
That's
trying to
great,
do
Marcia.
that at least for offshore wind, again, for the same reason that, Ryan, Maddie, and Mariah mentioned, to get rid of the disparity that exists, that is further. Also, I think one more area that I wanted to cover is long-term, 60% of the jobs in offshore wind are in manufacturing. This is from Europe, right? We're not there yet. We know that. We know the turbine parts come from other places, and we only assemble them. We call that manufacturing. That's not manufacturing. But we do have on Long Island, okay? We do have this from back when Grumman was big, right?
Yes.
From the defense industry. We have smaller manufacturing firms that can get involved and be empowered to train their people and train, the CNC machining is going to be really big, right? So we're working with them and that's just not Long Island. I want to think about the future. That's like New York State, upstate
Yes.
New York needs the similar empowerment. So all those I think we're addressing. And as I've said before, for the first time in my career, my history, what I remember, we're all working together. And to Adrienne's point about the Intro to Wind summer program that we did, and we're going to take it to high schools, is we've got all these guys along with engineers from GE and Avangrid and Equinor talking to students and telling them these are the opportunities. You don't have to be just this type of a person or this type of person or this talent. There is opportunities for everyone. And Adrienne's been kind enough to provide Uber rides for people that we can't get to our campus.
Marge, honestly, you must have read my mind, because I was going to bring up the Long Island manufacturing industry and how we are uniquely positioned, quite literally, to provide the smaller components of the supply
Absolutely.
chain, like cables, ball bearings, microgrids, even drones.
Yes.
And,
That's true.
That can happen now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is what we need. We need to just help. And like I said, there is enough money. They're throwing, both state and federal money is throwing money our ways. What we want to make sure is we are not having redundant efforts. We're not paying for redundant efforts, 10 of them similar, and only one gets to survive.
Right.
And this is why it
That's right.
takes very close coordination and everyone being at table, everyone understanding what the other guy is doing. We don't step on each other's toes, but at the same time, we make sure that we're all doing have the same goal.
Right. And, it used to be, it's so exciting, I believe, for Long Island and New York State. Long Island used to be the cradle of aviation, right?
Exactly.
But now we could be the cradle of offshore wind power.
Yep.
And that's not just a saying. We actually are on our way to creating and crafting that. It's a lot of work, okay? It's a lot of moving parts. We're not going to get there overnight, but we can get there. We are getting there. I was at one event where someone used the phrase, from the wind turbines to the egg sandwiches. I mean, even your local delis and your local eateries, as people come in to put these things together. I was at one conference where some of the ships that will be offshore, they're going to be offshore for a week or two at a time. And they're going to need to be bringing in food. So they're going to need food suppliers. All of those things are jobs too.
Absolutely.
So everything from your technical to your electrical workers to your manufacturing jobs to your business planners to community outreach. I mean, the number of jobs and the diversity of jobs are quite significant.
Adrienne, if you look through history, you had the mechanical revolution. You had world wars where we came to the aid of other countries, and what we did was we put our efforts into making sure that we produce things in the United States. Following that, then we also had this great space race. We haven't had anything since then. And that's exactly what today is. This is the evolution to replace what was there before, which is a job for an entire generation, not just something now. it's an entire generation can go from the beginning to end and still have ancillary jobs that will benefit the next round and the next innovative technology, because carbon footprint is getting lowered. And that's what the whole goal is, because we can go ahead and get there faster than everybody thinks.
So we only have a few minutes left, but let me just say this too. And I really appreciate what you just said, because it makes me remember the days when it used to be falsely thought that to have a good, clean environment meant that you wouldn't have good jobs, or that we were not going to have a good economy. And we all, many elected officials also, have evolved to understanding that a clean, healthy environment is a vibrant economy, particularly, in New York State, where we are on Long Island. We're known for clean water, clean beaches, and we need that. We want to keep that. We don't want to be known for sea level rise and for, the damage that's done with the coastal erosion and ocean acidification and these terrible intensified storms that we're having. We need to do our part to fight back. We can do our part to fight back climate change at the same time by growing Long Island and New York State economically with great jobs. I just want to really thank all of you for the work you're doing and the role that you're playing in this new kind of renaissance that's happening across Long Island. I don't know if future generations will understand the hard work that's going in this, and that you guys, really have worked hard to get us this far. We have a long way to go. I don't want anybody to celebrate yet. But in 2022, the first offshore wind farm is being built, and it's called South Fork Wind. It's off of the South Fork of Long Island. It's the smallest one, but it's also the first one in New York State, and it's only the second one in the nation. So we are making history. We are making a change, and we really should celebrate that. We have a long way to go. Any last words?
Yeah, if I may, I just want to reemphasize and highlight points both you and Maddie made. We growing up, I always heard about Grumman and the economic impact it had here on Long Island, and it was a generational employer. We're fortunate that, and you touched on this, the fact that the environmental community, the union movement, we no longer have to convey to our elected officials it's one or the other, and it's because so far, and we're going to hold them to it, but we have every faith it's going to happen. The developers in the offshore wind industry understand, not only in construction, but come operations and maintenance, the supply chain, we need good quality jobs coming online, because it's the utility sector that's going to be powering down over time that are family sustaining careers. Those people own homes here. They're members of our community. They contribute economically. We're fortunate that with the commitments we've made in New York State, there's going to be $12 billion of economic impact. The workforce needs to share in that economic impact. So knowing that the developers are good players is something we're excited about. We're going to hold them to it, and we're full of gratitude that we have good partners that are going to work with us on that.
Okay, well, we have to end it there. So we want to thank you guys so much for spending a little bit of time with us. I hope that this was informative to you, and I hope that you also can be a supporter of offshore wind so we can transition away from dangerous, dirty fossil fuels into a new, cleaner, safer future. We want to make Long Island and New York State livable, lovable, and sustainable. And one way to do that is with offshore wind. Thank you so much.